Let's start with tonight's big number, negative 57%. That's right, negative. That is the country's 2-week growth rate in COVID infections. So it's coming down. This has prompted the health department to classify the Philippines as minimal risk for COVID-19. To add to that, average daily attack rate is only 67 per 100,000 Filipinos.
That's definitely some news to be cheerful about as the holiday season nears. But health authorities are not letting down their guard down, especially with the looming threat of the Omicron variant. Just today, neighboring Thailand reported its first case of the new variant, which Octa says is twice more transmissible than the now dominant Delta variant. Good evening, I'm Maricel Halili.
I'm Robbie Alampa. You're watching The Big Story. The Omicron variant is starting to hit closer to home as Southeast Asia reports its first case in Thailand. The Philippines, while still Omicron-free, is meanwhile monitoring 250 travelers from South Africa where the variant was first detected.
Little is still known about the new variant, but the Octa Research Group said that based on South Africa's experience, Omicron might just be twice more transmissible than Delta. Jen Calimon has the big story.
From South Africa to Australia, the Omicron variant has spread to at least 47 countries in about a week. The emergence of the new variant has forced several countries to tighten border restrictions, triggering fresh concerns about the health of the global economy. In Asia, Thailand reported its first case of Omicron from a foreigner from Spain. South Korea, meanwhile, has already detected 12 cases of the new variant. Over in South America, Brazil just had its index case, prompting authorities to cancel New Year's Eve celebration in Rio de Janeiro. Several other countries in the region closed its borders due to the Omicron variant. The Philippines so far has been spared from the new variant. The Health Department, however, is already monitoring over 250 travelers from South Africa that entered the country from November 15 to 29. Among these travelers, 165 are still ongoing verification, while 8 have yet to be located. Samples from 1 COVID-positive traveler and 11 returning overseas Filipinos are now undergoing genome sequencing. The Octa Research Group warns that the Omicron variant is twice more transmissible than the Delta variant.
During its Delta surge and Alpha and Beta surge, the reproduction number was much lower. In fact, for what we think is the Delta surge, the reproduction number was just around 2. So ibig sabihin that what that means is it's about twice as infectious at least. Pero yung reproduction number of 4 na yan, hindi yan yung in its natural state kasi with certain restrictions na yan eh.
But for the DOH, it's still early to say that the Omicron is more transmissible. They said other factors must be considered to assess transmissibility. Still, the DOH has appealed to LGUs to intensify their testing capacity to easily track patients once the Omicron enters the country.
We cannot 100% control prevent the entry of these variants. Ang ginagawa natin, we buy time when we prepare our system at gumawa tayo ng mga ganitong efforts. Sa ngayon, stricter border controls, biosurveillance, yung ating community response. This buys us time.
Reporting for News 5, Jen Calimon, We Are One News.
Health authorities say it's no longer a matter of if, but when the Omicron variant will enter the Philippines. If so, just how ready is the country once the new variant enters our shores? That big question and more with Testing Chief and Health Undersecretary Leopoldo Vega. Yusek Vega, welcome po ulit sa Big Story.
Good evening, Robbie, and good evening to all the listeners, and good evening to Maricel.
Yusek, maybe let's start with the 250 travelers from South Africa. Pagkatapos, there's a number there that's undergoing verification. What do all of these numbers mean?
It only means that we really have to intensify and take some necessary precautions on our border control. And it means that people coming from these red list countries, most specifically South Africa, they had to be screened and tested and should have a biosurveillance or genotyping for the possibility of the Omicron COVID-19.
Kanina po may nabanggit lang si Yusek Vergere. Is there still a question on the transmissibility of this variant?
Yeah, there has been reports that because of this mutation of the 30 places in the spike protein, they have been saying that the virus or this Omicron is much more transmissible compared to the Alpha, Beta, and the Delta variant. Now, this has been not been proven, and we are still awaiting the recommendation of the Department of the WHO in terms of the peer group analysis of the research that has been done that is to say that they are really very transmissible. But we have to take the necessary precautions because of the mutations that they have much more than the Delta variant.
Kanina po nabanggit din ni Yusek Vergere that it is inevitable. We might as well assume it's inevitable. It's a matter of when, not if. And she says that we're not trying to prevent, we're just buying time. And while we're buying time, we are preparing. So to that end, ano po ang nagbago? What have we changed? And how are we preparing? Is it a matter of actual changes or is it just a matter of more?
Actually, the Omicron variant is definitely would come to our shores one of these days because of the global trouble that we have. Now, the only thing is that we need to take the necessary precautions and restrictions, especially with our border, starting off with screening them with RT-PCR and, of course, biosurveillance, and making sure that the isolation and quarantine places for these patients would be with the community at the community level would be very appropriate once they come around.
Okay, Yusek Vega, maraming salamat po. That was Undersecretary Leopoldo Vega of the Department of Health. As the world zeroes in on the Omicron variant, one of the creators of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is already warning of a more lethal pandemic after COVID-19. Delivering the 44th Richard Dimbleby Lecture, vaccine creator Sarah Gilbert says that scientific advances and research against COVID-19 must not be lost. Gilbert also said that the world should take precautionary measures to prevent the further spread of the Omicron variant. She says the variant spike proteins have mutations that raise its transmissibility.
This will not be the last time a virus threatens our lives and our livelihoods. We cannot allow a situation where we have gone through all we have gone through and then find that the enormous economic losses we have sustained mean that there is still no funding for pandemic preparedness. And now, the unwelcome but widely anticipated news of a new, highly transmissible variant, Omicron. Until we know more, we should be cautious and take steps to slow down the spread of this new variant.
These are the other big stories tonight. It was a different back-to-school experience as a number of public schools in Metro Manila welcomed pupils for the pilot testing of in-person classes. The word war with the president, it seems, is all behind Manila Mayor Isko Moreno. The presidential aspirant says that he would not only vote President Duterte for senator, but would also adopt him in his slate. And Christmas is bound to get merrier for motorists. Oil companies will be rolling back pump prices big time starting tomorrow. This big stories after the break.
evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Maricel Halili. After nearly 2 years of closure, several schools in Metro Manila have resumed in-person classes today.
Some students, however, are finding it difficult to adjust after being cooped up at home for so long. Mon Gualvez with the story.
28 schools in Metro Manila welcomed over 2,000 students today after nearly 2 years of distance learning. This includes Tunasan National High School in Muntinlupa, which imposed stringent health protocols like body temperature checking, hand washing, and social distancing. Students should also have their own QR codes, which will serve as their ID and attendance. The school also provided each student with their own COVID-19 kit.
May sarili silang kit para hindi sila magkakahawakan, no? Na hiram-hiram, bawal yun. And then, mayroon tayong coding system para walang crowding.
Only 40 vaccinated senior high school students were allowed to stay for only 4.5 hours inside the campus.
Every after class, the school makes sure to disinfect the area for the safety of everybody, in which the classroom should be vacant from 30 minutes until 1 hour.
Even though students were excited, some say that they are still adjusting to the in-person setup.
Hindi na po ako marunong masyadong mag-approach sa personal po. Ang tagal ko po lang sa bahay.
Some still believe that the face-to-face setup is much better than online classes.
Siyempre po natututukan sila ng kanilang mga advisor kaysa po sa mga module at saka sa kanilang mga online.
Meanwhile, in Senator Renato Cayetano Science and Technology High School in Taguig, a shuttle service is allotted for their students. In Payatas B Elementary School Annex in Quezon City, students need to undergo antigen testing before entering the school. The DepEd NCR said that they are looking into adding more schools to the pilot run, but blended and hybrid learning will still remain. DepEd said they will ensure that health protocols are in place and strictly observed during the span of the pilot study. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
Time for an express look at some of the day's big stories. The Health Department is considering NEDA's suggestion to change the COVID monitoring system, limiting it to tracking severe COVID-19 cases. But according to Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, the country first has to reach its target coverage for vaccination before making the shift. Describing it as harassment and intimidation, the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines, together with the Economic Journalists Association of the Philippines, decries Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi and Dennis Uй's libel suits against the members of the media. According to the groups, the stories are based on a press conference and a press release, all considered fair game in journalism. And motorists can expect relief as some oil firms are set to implement a major price rollback effective tomorrow. Gasoline prices are set to cut back 2 pesos and 40 centavos per liter, diesel by 2 pesos and 65 centavos per liter, and kerosene will be lower by 2 pesos and 70 centavos a liter. Boxing's longtime pound-for-pound king, Manny Pacquiao, wants to conquer another arena, this time online. A look at his very own esports team in Pamela Vasquez's report.
Our purpose is to become the pound-for-pound esports heavyweights of Southeast Asia through community engagement, professional teams, content creation, and charitable giving.
Retired boxer and presidential aspirant Senator Manny Pacquiao is ready to rumble once again. This time, online. Pacquiao on Saturday launched his own electronic sports brand called Team Pacquiao GG. GG, short for good game, is something gamers say at the end of a match to show sportsmanship. During the launch in Parañaque, Pacquiao highlighted the rapid growth of esports, which is currently dominated by the US, South Korea, Japan, and China. He says the Philippines can and should harness local talents to compete.
Esports is not just an online phenomenon, but also legitimate, growing sports industry around the world with a lot of job and business opportunities.
Joining his 5-person squad are YouTuber Gloco, influencers Super King B and In, world-renowned esports commentator Ghost Wrecker, and gamer Shinbu. For his team, Pacquiao signed a partnership with London-based Veloci, an international gaming agency.
We developed the Team Pacquiao brand as part of a long-term strategy to build the national esports gaming team of the Philippines that will compete across of all Asia.
Among the various games Team Pacquiao GG has set its sights on are Call of Duty, Mobile Legends, and Valorant. Esports research firm Newzoo estimates that the industry will surpass $1 billion in revenue this year and will have a live stream audience of more than 700 million worldwide. It was included as a medal event in the 2019 Southeast Asian Games, and there's a growing push for it to be officially included in the Olympics too. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
For the big story in sports, the NLEX Road Warriors have announced that Asitaw Lava will be part of their roster in the upcoming PBA Governors Cup. The 48-year-old Taulava now becomes the oldest active player in the league. Head coach Yang Yao says the team decided to bring back Taulava for his 22nd PBA season to add size and length to their lineup. This as they missed the services of some of their big men due to injuries. Yao added that they are hoping to give the Philtongan Center a fitting send-off for his illustrious career. Still in the PBA, the Pure Foods TJ Titans finally clinched a title in the 3x3 competition after topping the fourth leg of the league's inaugural tournament. Pure Foods finally got over the hump after a couple of semi-final heartbreaks as well as a finals defeat in the first leg of the competition. Pau Havilona led the TJ Titans in the championship match with 10 points, while Joseph Eriobu added 5 markers. With the victory, the Titans became the first SMC-owned squad to win a title in the tournament.
Time for another quick break. When we return, months after tensions first broke up between them, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno says he would gladly adopt President Duterte in their senatorial slate. Deposed Myanmar leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been sentenced to 4 years in jail. This is the first of almost a dozen charges lodged against the ousted leader. And with just days away from Christmas, have you already thought about your wish list? For some people deprived of liberty, the simplest of things is enough to give them joy this season. A look at their holiday list after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Maricel Halili. After a Quezon City court bared that Bongbong Marcos Jr. has yet to serve his sentence, pictures of a receipt to prove that Marcos paid fines circulated online over the weekend.
But critics were quick to point out inconsistencies, especially with the dates, not to mention the receipt has yet to be certified or verified. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to the story.
Did he or did he not pay the penalties as ordered by the courts? Digital copies of what looked like an official receipt issued to Bongbong Marcos by the Land Bank went viral over the weekend, where the receipt was a January 2001 cover letter to the BIR informing them that the payment had already been made. The documents made it appear that Bongbong Marcos had already paid 67,000 pesos to the government on December 2001 in compliance with a sentence handed down against him by the Regional Trial Court in 1995. But critics were quick to point apparent inconsistencies.
The lawyer said that we have not paid. In fact, he was saying they did not pay the deficiency income tax. And now they're showing that they paid.
One Sambayan convener, Antonio Carpio, pointed out that the letter to the BIR informing them that the payment had been made was dated January 4, 2001, but the OR was only dated December 2001, or 11 months later.
How could he have determined to the exact last centavo what was paid when the payment would depend on the actual date of payment?
Carpio adds that it's also strange that the letter was dated 7 months before the Supreme Court granted Marcos Jr.'s appeal to withdraw his appeal on August 2001. In other words, it would appear that Marcos paid the fine, then withdrew his appeal half a year later. One News tried to confirm the authenticity of the documents with the Marcos camp, but received no reply. But former president of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, Domingo Cayosa, said it is possible for Marcos to have paid the deficiencies in advance of the approval.
Baka typo error niya. Siguro January 2002 dapat yan.
Marcos is facing a battery of disqualification cases for his failure to file income tax returns for 4 years. Last week, the Quezon City Court that convicted him said that there were no records on file that showed Marcos had ever paid the fines and tax deficiencies he was convicted for.
Why did they not inform the court if they paid? I mean, that's the whole point. You have to inform the court para at least the court will say, okay, a service of sentence has been made.
One News is coordinating with the BIR to verify the authenticity of these documents. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, we are One News.
Here are other election-related stories we're watching. Presidential aspirant Vice President Leni Robredo visited Baguio City and graced the city's flag-raising ceremony. Robredo thanked the Baguio LGU for their practice of good governance during this health crisis. Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong, meanwhile, praised Robredo for her sincerity and humility as a leader. Magalong, however, refused to confirm if his glowing remarks were unofficial endorsement of Robredo for 2022. The COMELEC has rejected with finality the application for registration of 107 party list groups. This included the Nurses United, a group representing nurses and other health workers frontlining the pandemic. The group rallied outside the COMELEC office in Manila, throwing tomatoes as a symbol of their disappointment. After months of tension, Aksyon Demokratiko standard-bearer and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno said he would welcome President Duterte into his Senate slate. Moreno said he would personally vote for Duterte and will be honored to have somebody like the president in their slate. Moreno and Duterte had engaged in a heated word war back in August and September, but Moreno says he has put all of those behind him.
Here are the other big stories around the world. Indonesia's Mount Semeru volcano erupted Monday morning after its first outburst on Saturday. At least 15 people on the Javan island were killed. 27 more are missing. Thousands were also displaced. Search and rescue operations were halted due to heavy wind and rain. Semeru is one of 100 volcanoes in Indonesia along the Pacific Ring of Fire. Myanmar's deposed leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been sentenced to 4 years in prison for incitement and breaching of COVID restrictions. The military did not give details to where she will be detained. Former President Win Myint also received the same sentence. A think tank says the charges were ludicrous and were designed as retribution against the country's former civilian leader.
an extraordinary family in an enchanted town atop the mountains of Colombia. The Madrigals tell the tale of finding one's magic in the Disney animated film Encanto. One of its character animators took on the same journey. Despite being stuck at home, Filipino-American animator Mikey Sevilla was still able to find inspiration in making the movie.
Feels like we're apart, but we're still connected in a way. We're still collaborating and we're all having fun. This Encanto has been the most fun project I've ever worked on in my career.
For them, the pandemic should never be a hurdle in going after one's dreams.
Thinking about pursuing a passion, there's really so the sky's the limit. You know, if there's information that you need, the internet is there.
Encanto has been resonating well with the moviegoers. It has been leading the U.S. box office charts for 2 weeks now. Mikey says a lot of it is influenced by Filipinos' tight-knit family culture.
I feel like there's a pattern happening that I've been drawing inspiration from my mom.
Encanto hits Philippine cinema starting December 8. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
And what's Christmas without wishes? While many wish for toys or clothes, some persons deprived of liberty in the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology are wishing for something more this Christmas.
The BJMP installed a Wish Ko Lang tree, where PDLs hung their wishes written on a piece of paper. Some of the wishes were both heart-wrenching and heartwarming. For example, one PDL wished to give his son a cell phone as he is unable to give him one while in jail. One PDL, meanwhile, wished for a massage kit along with hot stones. She says she will use this for her livelihood once she is released.
For some PDLs, never mind that they'll be in prison on the 24th as long as their families will have a bountiful Noche Buena. While one had a very simple wish, slippers. Several individuals have already commented on Facebook that they are willing to donate the food or items wished for by the PDLs.
Bawal pa bisita sa kanila ngayon.
Oh.
Because of the pandemic.
Oh. But really, I mean, if people can help out, and I think this is circulating online, you could see also some of these wishes online, why not, di ba? Kung pwede tayong, if we can brighten somebody's Christmas, why not?
Why not share? Share your blessings, sabi nga nila, especially now, it's Christmas in 19 days. Tuloy pa rin ang Pasko, mga kapatid.
Tuloy pa rin ang Pasko, mga kapatid.
And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And on behalf of Gretchen Ho, I'm Maricel Halili. We are One News. Good evening.